The spaceport of Vela Outpost was silent, almost dead, except for the sound of old machines groaning in the cold wind. Rust-colored dust swirled around broken lights, and most traders had already left for safer stations. But one man still walked the dim alleys, a human named Jaren, a trader who had lost more than he had gained. He had very little fuel left, very little food, and almost no credits. Every step he took echoed with the weight of failure. Jaren had planned to make profit on this trip, but deals went bad. Pirates stole his cargo, and now he was down to scraps. He needed fuel to leave this dying station. But his credits could barely buy him a single tank. That was when he saw her at first. He thought it was only a bundle of rags tossed against the cold wall. But then the shape moved and he saw thin fingers. Trembling, clutching the fabric, a face peeked out, pale alien, with eyes dim as if the soul inside was fading. She was not human. Her skin had a soft glow, like frost touched with light, and her hair was tangled, frozen in strands. Her lips were blue, her breathing shallow. She looked more like a ghost than a living being. A few merchants nearby laughed at her. "She's been sitting there for days," one of them sneered, "waiting for mercy." "But no one wastes food on trash," another merchant shook his head. "Worthless creature, better to let her freeze." Their voices carried no care. No pity, only cold judgment. Jaren stopped walking. He should have turned away. He knew he had no credits to spare, but his feet would not move. His heart pounded and his eyes locked on her. Something about the way she sat, shaking, silent, almost giving up, pulled at him like gravity. He crouched down, his voice low. "Hey, can you hear me?" Her eyes opened weakly, glowing faintly in the shadows. Her lips trembled. She tried to speak, but only a broken whisper came out. Her voice was fragile, almost gone, yet filled with something that made his chest tighten. Jaren swallowed hard. He knew he had a choice: walk away and survive, or stay and lose what little he had left. But the thought of leaving her to die on the cold ground burned in his chest. He walked into the nearest shop, tossing his last credits on the counter. The shopkeeper raised an eyebrow. "You want clothes?" "For who, that frozen beggar outside?" "Waste of money, human." Jaren's voice was sharp. "Just give me the warmest you have." The shopkeeper shrugged and handed over a thick coat, boots, and a thermal wrap. When Jaren picked them up, his hands trembled, not from the cold, but from knowing he now had nothing left. He returned to her, and the merchant smirked, whispering that humans were fools, but Jaren ignored them, kneeling beside the alien woman, carefully wrapping her in the coat and placing the thermal wrap around her thin shoulders. Her body flinched at first, as if she wasn't used to kindness. Then slowly she leaned into the warmth, her breathing a little steadier. Her eyes lifted. Meeting his for the first time, they were strange eyes, deep and glimmering like ice under moonlight. She didn't thank him, not with words. She simply stared, as if trying to understand why a stranger would help her. Jaren forced a smile. "Don't worry, you're safe now," he said. Though his own future was darker than hers, he lifted her carefully, her weight shockingly light. Almost fragile, she let out a weak sound, like she wanted to resist, but she didn't have the strength. Jaren carried her toward his ship, his boots echoing on the metal floor behind him. The merchant's laughter faded into the night. Inside the ship, Jaren laid her gently on a bunk. Adjusting the heaters, his small ship was old. The walls scratched, the controls outdated, but it was warmer than the streets outside. He placed a cup of water near her lips, helping her drink. She coughed but managed to swallow, her eyes never leaving his face. "Why?" she whispered, her voice cracked, almost too soft to hear. Jaren paused, his chest tightening. Why indeed? He had nothing left, no future, no credits, not even hope. Yet he had given the last of himself to a stranger. He thought about the faces of those merchants, about how easily they turned away. Maybe that was the answer. "Because no one else did," he replied softly. Her eyes blinked slowly, as if she wanted to believe, but exhaustion won, and she drifted into sleep. Jaren sat in the chair beside her bunk, staring at the dim stars outside the ship's window. He had lost everything tonight, but strangely, he didn't feel empty. Instead, he felt a fire inside, a spark he had not felt in years. What he didn't know was that this frozen stranger was not just another beggar. Her presence on his ship would soon pull him into a storm far bigger than he imagined. And the credits he spent tonight might be the start of a story that could change the stars themselves. The hum of the ship's engine was the only sound in the small cabin. Jaren sat near the bunk, his eyes half closed but his body refusing to rest. The alien woman was wrapped in the warm coat, her breathing slow and steady now. She had survived the night, but her weakness was clear. Her hands still trembled when she moved. Hours passed before she stirred. Her eyelids fluttered and her glowing eyes opened. Scanning the strange walls around her, for a moment fear filled them, and she tried to sit up, but her strength gave out. Jaren leaned forward quickly. Easy, easy. You're safe here, he said gently. Her lips moved, forming words slowly. Where am I? Jaren sighed. On my ship, small but warmer than that alley. She stared at him, suspicion rising. Why? Help me, what do you want? Her voice was weak, but her tone sharp, like a blade that had not lost its edge. Jaren gave a tired laugh, shaking his head. I don't want anything. He poured water into a metal cup and helped her drink again. I saw you out there and I couldn't just walk away, he said. She studied him, her glowing eyes narrow, as if searching for lies in her world. Kindness was never free. Every gift came with a chain, every hand with hidden claws. But Jaren's face was open, his tired eyes honest. That confused her more than it comforted. She leaned back, whispering, You are human, Jaren smirked. Yeah, last time I checked. Her eyes blinked slowly. Humans do not travel here often, too far from your kind. Jaren nodded. True. But traders like me wander where profit might be hiding. At the word profit, her gaze darkened. Then why waste your last credits? On me, she asked. Jaren hesitated, staring at his worn boots. He could not explain it himself. The decision made no sense. But when he looked at her again, he simply said, Because I wanted to. Silence filled the room. Her eyes softened for a moment. But then she looked away. She didn't understand him. And she didn't trust him, not yet. Trust was a rare thing in the galaxy, and she had been betrayed too many times later. Jaren brought out a small meal, nothing fancy. Only dried rations heated in a tin. He set it near her, but she stared at it with hesitation. Her body was starving, yet she feared a hidden trap. Jaren noticed and pushed the plate closer. It's just food, nothing more. Slowly, she picked a piece and tasted it. Her hand shook. But when the warmth spread inside, her eyes widened slightly. She ate carefully at first, then faster, hunger breaking her pride. Jaren smiled faintly, relief filling him. Good. At least you'll live, he muttered. When she finished, she finally spoke, her voice steadier. My name is Lyra. The sound of her name carried weight, like it belonged to someone more than just a starving stranger. Jaren repeated it softly. Lyra, I'm Jaren. She nodded once, then pulled the coat tighter around her body. Names were an exchange, a small bridge between two worlds. That night, Jaren sat at the controls. Staring at the star map, his fuel was almost gone, and he had no credits to buy more. Worse, he had no idea what enemies this woman might bring to his ship. But when he glanced back at her sleeping form, he didn't feel regret, for the first time in a long while. He felt his empty ship wasn't so empty. Lyra, however, could not sleep. Her body rested, but her mind raced. She remembered cold eyes of her kin, the betrayal that left her abandoned. She remembered the voices calling her unworthy, her power stolen, her name dragged into dirt. And now here was a human, someone she had been told were weak, careless creatures of flesh. Yet he had given his last credits for her, a gesture no one in her own world would have done. The next morning, Jaren checked the systems and muttered under his breath, If we don't find fuel, we'll drift in less than 2 days. Lyra heard him, her eyes narrowing. You gave everything for me, and now your ship dies. Jaren shrugged, trying to hide the worry. Wouldn't be the first time I was broke. She studied him, confusion growing deeper for the first time. She whispered something unexpected. I should not be here. I will only bring danger to you. Jaren turned sharply. Danger? Her lips pressed tight, refusing to explain, but the shadows in her eyes told him she carried secrets heavy enough to crush stars. He sighed, shaking his head. Well, too late now. You're on my ship, Lyra. Unless you want me to toss you out the airlock, which I won't, you're staying. Her eyes widened slightly at his bluntness, but then something almost like a smile flickered at her lips. Quickly gone, that small spark unsettled her more than anything else. She was not supposed to feel safe, not supposed to feel warmth, but around this strange human, she did, and it terrified her. What neither of them knew was that outside the quiet hum of the ship, signals were already being sent, enemies were already moving, and Lyra's presence on Jaren's ship had been noticed. The invitation he had given her was not just to his ship, but into his fate. And soon fate would come knocking with claws and fire. The stars drifted outside the window like frozen lanterns. Inside the ship, silence stretched between Jaren and Lyra, two strangers from different worlds bound together by one desperate choice. Jaren sat at the controls, tapping nervously at the fuel gauge. The red light glowed back at him, a cruel reminder. One day left before the ship went dark. He rubbed his face, muttering, "What was I thinking?" But every time he looked back at Lyra, resting under the blanket he gave her, the question answered itself. Lyra stirred, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. She watched Jaren's movements carefully, as if measuring the man who had carried her away from death. Finally, she broke the silence, her voice still weak but steady. "You risked everything." "Without knowing who I am," Jaren turned in his chair, shrugging. "I don't need to know. You needed help. That was enough." Her eyes narrowed, sharp like blades cutting through lies. "No one helps without reason. Not in this galaxy. Not even humans." Jaren leaned back, smirking. "Guess I'm not a normal human, then." Her lips pressed together, as if fighting between distrust and curiosity. At last she whispered, "My name is Lyra Kael'thar." Jaren tilted his head. "Kael'thar? That's supposed to mean something?" Lyra's eyes hardened. "It means I am not just a refugee. I was an heir." The words hung heavy in the air. Jaren frowned. "Heir? To what?" Her gaze shifted to the floor, her voice bitter. "To a throne of fire and chains. My family rules the Kael Dominion. One of the oldest empires in this sector." Jaren blinked, his chest tightening. He had heard whispers of the Kael Dominion. Ruthless, ancient, feared. They were known for war fleets that crushed planets, for politics soaked in betrayal. And now, sitting in his ship, eating his food, wearing his coat, was one of their own. "You're telling me," Jaren said slowly, "I dragged a Kael princess onto my ship?" Lyra's lips curved into something between a smile and a grimace. "Princess? Yes, but not anymore. They stripped me of title, of power, left me to freeze like waste." Her voice shook, anger hidden beneath exhaustion. "My own blood betrayed me. They feared I would challenge their rule, so they removed me quietly without a trace." Jaren leaned back in his chair, whistling low. "Well, that explains why you looked more like a ghost than royalty." Her eyes flashed with sharp pride, but then dimmed again. "I was never meant to be weak. They wanted me to disappear, and I almost did." Silence settled again, broken only by the hum of the ship. Jaren scratched the back of his neck. "So let me get this straight. If someone finds out you're alive, your enemies will come knocking?" Lyra's eyes met his, and for the first time fear flickered there. "They will not knock. They will burn. And anyone near me will die." Jaren's chest tightened, the weight of her truth pressing on him. He could throw her out now, leave her on some empty rock, save himself. But as he looked at her trembling hands clutching the blanket tighter, the thought disgusted him. He shook his head, muttering, "Figures. I spend my last credit saving someone, and she turns out to be the galaxy's most wanted." Lyra's lips parted, almost like an apology, but the words didn't come. Instead, she whispered, "You should not have helped me. You should not keep me here." Jaren smirked, though his eyes were serious. "Too late for should-nots. You're here, and unless you can fly this ship better than me, you're stuck with me." Her eyes lingered on him, searching, trying to understand his strange stubbornness. No one in her world ever chose risk over safety, compassion over profit. Yet this man, poor, desperate, and alone, had done both. It made no sense, and that was what unsettled her the most. Hours passed, the ship drifting slowly through empty space. Lyra sat up, her voice softer now. "Do you even understand what danger you carry with me?" Jaren chuckled. "Lady, I've been broke, hunted by pirates, and stranded more times than I can count. Danger's an old friend by now." Lyra's eyes softened for the first time, just a flicker of something unguarded. Perhaps admiration, perhaps sorrow. She looked down, her voice almost a whisper. "You are either the bravest man I've met, or the most foolish." Jaren grinned. Why not both? But even as he joked, his mind was racing. If the Kael Dominion learned their lost heir was alive, they would tear apart every system searching, and Jaren's small battered ship wouldn't stand a chance. Still, when he glanced at Lyra, a quiet fire rose inside him. He didn't regret saving her, not even for a second outside, hidden in the sea of stars. A signal pulsed, a faint trace, unnoticed by Jaren's old sensors but far away. In the depths of the Dominion's territory, receivers caught it and the hunters began to move. Jaren thought he had rescued one woman, but what he had really carried aboard his ship was a storm with a name, a throne, and enemies that would not stop until blood washed the stars clean. And now the hidden truth was out. There was no turning back. The hum of the old ship was steady, but Jaren's nerves were not. He sat at the controls, staring at the fuel gauge, the red light glowing like a warning heart. Beside him, Lyra sat wrapped in the blanket, her glowing eyes fixed on the starfield ahead. Her silence was heavy, as if she already knew what was coming. Jaren muttered under his breath, "One more system. Maybe two if we're lucky." The ship's console flickered with static, old sensors struggling to scan the emptiness around them. But in the emptiness of space, danger always hid in silence. Suddenly, a sharp beep cut through the quiet. Jaren leaned forward, frowning. "That's not right." He tapped the screen, trying to clear the signal. But it stayed, a faint ping growing stronger, a pattern too clean to be random. Lyra's body stiffened, her voice sharp. "They've found us," Jaren turned to her. "Who?" Her eyes burned with fear and fury. "The hunters. My family's ships. They must have picked up my trace, almost on cue." The long-range sensors lit up, 3 blips appearing behind them. Closing fast, Jaren cursed under his breath. Slamming the controls forward, the ship's engines roared, old metal shaking as they pushed harder than ever before. But his heart sank. The hunters had newer ships. Faster, stronger, deadly. Lyra gripped the armrest, her voice trembling. "You should let me go. If they find me here, they'll kill you." Jaren's jaw tightened, eyes locked on the starfield. "Not happening." She shook her head. "You don't understand. They won't stop. They'll burn everything to ash just to end me." Jaren's voice rose, stubborn and fierce. "Then let them try. They'll have to get through me first." For a moment, Lyra just stared at him. Shocked, in her world, loyalty was a lie, compassion a weakness. Yet this man, with nothing but a failing ship, chose to stand against an empire for her. Something inside her chest stirred, a strange warmth she didn't recognize. The hunters grew closer, their signals sharp and merciless. Jaren slammed a switch, releasing old decoy flares. The ship shook as fireballs erupted behind them, scattering heat signatures into the void. One hunter ship swerved, confused, but the others pushed harder. Locking back onto their trail, Jaren gritted his teeth. This tub wasn't built for racing. Lyra's hand shot forward, pointing at the star map. "There," she said firmly, "a dead system nearby. An asteroid field. If we reach it, we can lose them." Jaren glanced at her. "You sure?" Her eyes narrowed. "I know these routes better than anyone." "Trust me." Jaren nodded and shifted course, the ship groaning as it turned sharply. The hunters followed, their sleek hulls glinting in the distant starlight. One of them fired, a streak of plasma cutting past the ship. Shaking it violently, sparks flew across the console. Alarms screaming, Jaren cursed. "They're not just chasing anymore, they're trying to end us now." Lyra leaned closer, her voice low but steady. "If you drop me in an escape pod, they might leave you alive." Jaren barked a laugh, though his hands trembled. "And waste the last credits I spent on clothes for you?" "Not a chance," she blinked at him. Stunned by his madness, his bravery, or his foolishness, the asteroid field loomed ahead, jagged rocks drifting in the darkness like silent giants. Jaren pushed the engines harder, the ship rattling as if it would fall apart. The hunters fired again, plasma streaking close. One blast grazing the hull, the cabin shook violently, and Lyra was thrown forward, gripping the seat. Jaren steadied the controls, sweat dripping down his forehead. "Hold together, old girl. Just a little more." They plunged into the asteroid field. Rocks spinning dangerously close, Jaren weaved between them. Every movement a gamble between survival and instant death. The hunters followed, but their larger ships struggled to match his smaller craft's turns. One slammed into a rock, bursting into fire and debris. The other two pressed on, relentless. Lyra leaned over the console, pointing again. "There, take the narrow pass." Jaren glanced at her, then at the impossibly thin gap between 2 massive stones. "That's suicide," he muttered. Her eyes burned. "It's survival. Trust me." With no other choice, Jaren angled the ship and pushed forward. The ship scraped through the gap, sparks flying as metal screamed. Behind them, one hunter ship tried to follow. Too slow, too wide. It smashed into the rock. Exploding in a blinding flash, only one hunter remained. Still chasing, still firing. Jaren's ship was bleeding sparks, hull groaning, systems failing. But they were alive, and two enemies were gone. Jaren exhaled hard, gripping the controls. 1 down, 2 down. Come on, let's make it 3. Lyra's eyes stayed fixed on the last hunter, her jaw clenched tight. She whispered words in her own language, sharp and cold, a vow only she understood. Then she looked at Jaren, her voice quiet but fierce. They will not stop, not until I am ash. But if we survive this, I will tell you everything. Jaren glanced at her, his smile tired but real. Fair deal. Let's survive first. The chase wasn't over. The last hunter still prowled, waiting for the perfect strike, but now, in the cold silence of the asteroid field, Jaren and Lyra were no longer just strangers. They were two lives tied together by danger, and the chase had only begun. The asteroid field was silent again. Only broken rocks floating in endless night. Jaren's ship drifted in the shadows, its engines dimmed to hide from sensors. Smoke curled from the damaged panels, sparks occasionally jumping across wires. Inside the cabin, Jaren worked with a wrench, sweat dripping as he tightened a broken pipe. Lyra sat nearby, her glowing eyes watching his every move. Her body was weak, but her mind was sharp. Always studying, always calculating. Finally she spoke, her voice low. Why do you keep fighting for me? Jaren grunted, not looking up. Because I don't like bullies, and your hunters sound like the biggest bullies in the galaxy. Her lips pressed into a thin line, almost a smile, but not quite. You are strange human, she whispered. Strange, but different, Jaren smirked, still focused on his repairs. I'll take that as a compliment. Hours passed as they patched the ship together. Jaren's hands grew tired, but Lyra surprised him. She crawled to the console, her fingers moving across controls with confidence. She tapped a hidden sequence, and the old sensors sharpened, scanning further than before. Jaren blinked. How did you do that? Lyra's eyes glowed faintly. My people build technology older than your entire species. I know how to wake machines. For the first time, Jaren saw something beyond the weakness. He saw skill, knowledge, and power buried inside her. She wasn't just a victim. She was someone who once carried command. Later they sat together in the small galley. Eating the last of Jaren's rations, Lyra ate carefully, but her eyes softened as she looked at him across the table. You gave your last credits for me. Now you share your last food, she said slowly. Humans, you choose kindness even when it costs you everything. Jaren shrugged, chewing on the dry bread. Maybe that's why we survive. We don't let go of each other. Her gaze lingered on him, a flicker of something warm rising in her chest. It felt strange, alien even, but she didn't push it away in her world. Power was earned through cruelty. Trust was shattered by greed. But here, on this broken little ship, she found something no throne had ever given her. Safety. That night, Jaren lay in his chair. Too tired to reach the bunk, he drifted in and out of sleep, his face lit by the faint glow of the control screen. Lyra watched him quietly, her hands clutching the blanket close. For the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. But outside, the last hunter ship still prowled, circling the field like a wolf in the dark. Its captain growled orders. They cannot hide forever. Increase scans. Find them. The hunt wasn't over. It was only waiting. Morning came with the cold hum of the engines restarting. Jaren checked the fuel, shaking his head. Not enough to make it far. We need a miracle. Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady. I can give you one. Jaren turned, raising an eyebrow. Oh? And how's that? She placed her hand on the navigation console, entering a route hidden deep in the map. This path is known only to my people. It will lead us to a hidden station, abandoned long ago but still holding supplies. Jaren studied her face, searching for deceit, but her eyes were firm, filled with certainty. He finally nodded. Then we try your way. As the ship crawled forward, Jaren found himself watching Lyra more. Not with suspicion, but with quiet wonder. She was proud yet broken, sharp yet fragile, and despite everything, the hunters, the danger, the madness, he didn't regret inviting her aboard. Lyra felt his gaze and turned. Her cheeks warming slightly, she looked away quickly, whispering, "Do not stare. It makes me uncomfortable." Jaren smirked. "Sorry, just trying to figure you out." She glanced back at him, her eyes narrowing. "And what do you see?" He leaned back, folding his arms. "Someone who survived more than anyone should. And someone worth protecting. Her breath caught at his words, her heart beating faster. No one had ever called her worth protecting before. Not her family, not her soldiers, not even those who once bowed to her. It felt dangerous, yet she couldn't stop the warmth spreading inside. Hours later, as they traveled through the secret route, Lyra finally spoke softly. When they betrayed me, I thought I had no reason to live. But now, her voice trailed off, her eyes fixed on the stars. Jaren turned to her. But now what? She looked at him, her expression unreadable. Now I wonder if the stars gave me a reason after all. Jaren didn't reply, but his chest tightened. Something had changed between them. No longer just survival, but something deeper, a fragile bond, born from shared hunger, shared danger, and shared trust. Yet even as they found comfort in each other, the hunter ship caught their faint trail again. Engines roared in the dark, weapons armed. The chase was not finished, it was only paused, and soon, Jaren and Lyra would have to test if their bond was strong enough to survive fire. The hidden route stretched like a tunnel of stars. Jaren's ship crept forward, its damaged engines humming with uneven rhythm. Every flicker of light on the console reminded him how fragile their survival was. But for now, silence held. Too quiet, too still. Lyra sat beside him, her glowing eyes scanning the map. She pointed to a small system ahead, her voice steady. There, an abandoned outpost. Supplies might still remain. If we reach it, we have a chance. Jaren nodded, forcing a smile. Finally. Good news, but deep inside, his instincts screamed. The silence outside wasn't safety. It was a hunter's patience, and sure enough, as they neared the system, the sensors flared red. 3 ships appeared, sliding out of the dark like predators with sharpened fangs. Jaren cursed, slamming the controls. They waited for us. Lyra's face hardened, fury in her eyes. It's a trap. The hunters had predicted her route, blocking every exit. Their formation tightened. Weapons charging. The comms crackled alive, a voice cold and cruel filling the cabin. Lyra Kael'thar, the lost heir. Surrender, and the human dies quickly. Resist, and you both suffer. Lyra's jaw clenched, her fingers digging into the armrest. Her people's voice, the voice of her betrayers, cut through her like a blade. Jaren smirked despite the fear rising inside him. Guess they don't know me very well, he muttered. He flicked a switch, activating the ship's decoys. Old drones sputtered from the cargo bay, scattering false signals into the dark. One hunter fired, destroying a drone, but the others held formation. Careful, disciplined, Lyra leaned closer to Jaren, her voice sharp. We cannot outrun them. Their ships are too fast. Jaren's hands tightened on the controls. Then we outsmart them. She frowned, confusion flashing. Outsmart? How? Jaren grinned, eyes flashing with reckless fire. Earth trick. The asteroid belt loomed just ahead, jagged rocks spinning silently. Jaren angled the ship toward it, engines screaming. Lyra's eyes widened. Are you insane? That field is death. Jaren smirked. Only if you don't know how to dance. The hunters followed, firing plasma bolts that lit the black sky with fire. Jaren weaved between rocks, each turn inches away from destruction. Sparks flew across the console, alarms shrieked, but he didn't stop. Lyra clung to the seat, her eyes locked on him. Stunned by his wild courage, one hunter ship clipped a rock, its hull cracking open before exploding in a flash of fire. Jaren laughed breathlessly. One down. The comms flared again, the enemy captain's voice snarling, You cannot win, human. You gamble with death, and death always claims its due. Jaren muttered. Maybe, but I've cheated death before. His eyes scanned the asteroid map, spotting something unusual. A cluster of massive rocks drifting together, their gravity pulling debris into a swirling storm. He grinned. Perfect, he turned to Lyra. When I say, hit the release on cargo hold 3, she frowned. What's in it? Scrap metal, he said with a grin. Lots of it. Lyra's eyes widened as she realized his plan, and for the first time she almost smiled. The ship roared into the cluster. The hunters chasing close, rocks slammed past them, some scraping against the hull. The hunters fired again, plasma beams flashing. Barely missing their mark, Jaren yelled, Now! Lyra slammed the release and the cargo hold burst open. Tons of scrap metal shot into the asteroid storm. Spinning wildly, the hunter's sensors lit up with chaos, struggling to separate real targets from false ones. One hunter collided with the storm of debris, torn apart instantly. The other swerved sharply, its shield sparking under the rain of shrapnel. Jaren angled hard, diving deeper into the cluster. The last hunter pursued, damaged but still dangerous. Lyra gritted her teeth, whispering, "They will not stop." Jaren glanced at her, sweat dripping down his face. "Neither will I." Suddenly, the cluster ended, opening into a void lit by a pale sun. The abandoned outpost drifted there, silent. Broken but still intact, Jaren angled toward it. But the last hunter closed in. Its weapons powered, a final shot charging. The comms flared one last time, the captain's voice cold as ice. "You cannot escape fate, human. Hand her over and you may yet crawl away." Jaren smirked, flicking the comms off. "Yeah, I don't do crawling." He pulled the ship into a dive, skimming close to the outpost's wreckage. The hunter followed, closing fast. But Lyra's eyes widened, seeing the outpost's cracked fuel tanks leaking into space. She shouted, "Jaren, aim for the tanks!" Without hesitation, Jaren fired his last missile. The tanks exploded in a blinding firestorm, swallowing the hunter whole. The shockwave slammed his ship hard, systems screaming, lights dying. But when the flames cleared, the hunter was gone. Only silence remained. Jaren slumped back. His chest heaving, Lyra stared at him, her lips trembling with words unsaid. Finally, she whispered, "You're mad, but brilliant." Jaren chuckled weakly. "I'll take that as a compliment." They had survived the trap, but barely. The ship was dying, fuel nearly gone, systems broken. And the outpost ahead was their only hope. Lyra's eyes softened as she looked at him. In her world, no one would have risked so much for her. Yet this man had fought an empire with nothing but courage and scraps. For the first time, she thought, perhaps fate had not cursed her after all. The wreckage of the hunter ship still burned behind them. Shattered metal floated through the pale glow of the dead sun. Jaren's small ship limped forward, its engines coughing like a dying animal. Sparks danced across the console, warning lights flashing red. Jaren wiped the sweat from his forehead. His chest still heaving from the last maneuver, he muttered, "That was too close." Beside him, Lyra sat in silence, her glowing eyes fixed on the outpost ahead. Her fingers gripped the blanket tight, but her expression was unreadable. They docked at the abandoned station, metal scraping against metal as the ship latched on. Inside, the outpost was dark and cold, dust floating in the air like frozen ash. Broken crates and forgotten machines lined the corridors. But deep inside, Jaren found what he needed: old fuel cells. Cracked but still usable. As he worked, Lyra followed him, her steps quiet, her voice low. "You risked your life for me again," she whispered. Jaren chuckled, though his hands shook with exhaustion. "Yeah, I tend to make bad investments." Her lips curved faintly, almost a smile. "You call me an investment?" "Best one I've made," he replied without hesitation. For a long moment, silence lingered, but something hung heavy in the air. "Something unspoken." Finally, Lyra said softly, "If they know I live, they will send more. Entire fleets. This will not end here." Jaren looked up, meeting her eyes. "Then we keep running." Her gaze hardened. "You don't understand. They won't just come for me, they'll come for you, for anyone who stands beside me." He leaned back, sighing. "Lyra, I don't care who they send. I won't throw you away." Her throat tightened at his words, her heart pulling in directions she didn't want to admit. No one had ever chosen her over safety, over reason, until now, later. As the ship powered again with stolen fuel, a faint signal reached them, a broadcast, sharp and cold, spreading across the sector. "Attention, Lyra Kelthar, traitor to the Dominion, has been sighted. A bounty is placed, dead or alive. Bring her head, and you will be rewarded beyond measure." Jaren's stomach sank, the weight of the words crashing over him. He turned to Lyra. "They've just painted a target on both of us." Lyra's hands shook, her voice bitter. "I told you. My presence is death. Leave me here, at least you can survive." Jaren stepped closer, his eyes blazing. "No, I didn't save you to abandon you now. You're not cargo I drop when it gets heavy." Lyra stared at him, stunned by his fire, her voice barely a whisper. "You would face an empire. For me?" He smiled faintly. "I've faced worse. Try being broke on Earth." She let out a sound, half a laugh, half a sob, and turned away quickly. Her heart raced, warmth flooding her chest. It was dangerous to feel this, but she couldn't stop it anymore. When the ship was ready, they drifted away from the station. The stars stretched before them, endless cold. And yet strangely full of promise. Lyra sat beside Jaren, her voice soft, almost trembling. You give me choices I thought I lost, Jaren frowned. What do you mean? She looked at him, her glowing eyes shimmering with something deeper than fear. In my world, I was born to rule or to die, nothing in between. They never gave me the choice to simply live. Her hands tightened on the blanket. But you gave me warmth, food, hope, a place. A choice. Jaren swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. Finally, he said, Then choose. What do you want, Lyra? To go back and fight for your throne? Or to disappear and start over? Her heart twisted, torn between the past and the future. She could reclaim power, lead armies, and crush her betrayers, but when she looked at Jaren, sitting there in his old chair, stubborn and reckless, she realized that power had never given her what this human had given her. Compassion, loyalty, a bond stronger than any crown. Slowly, she spoke, her voice firm. I choose, not the throne, not the war. I choose this ship. I choose to walk the stars beside you. Jaren blinked, surprised, then grinned. Careful, Lyra. Life with me isn't glamorous. It's more duct tape and cheap meals than thrones and crowns. Her lips curved into a real smile, the first in years. Then it's already better than the life I left. The ship's engines rumbled, carrying them into the unknown. Behind them, fleets would gather, hunters would prepare, and war might come. But inside the small ship, two souls sat together, not as strangers anymore, one human, one alien, bound not by blood or duty, but by choice. Jaren glanced at her, smirking. So, Princess Lyra Kael'thar, what now? She looked at him, her glowing eyes calm, her voice steady. Not princess, not heir, just Lyra, and now, we write our own story. The stars stretched ahead, endless and unforgiving, but for the first time, neither of them felt alone. The frozen stranger and the foolish human had found something greater than survival. They had found each other, and that was a choice no empire could take away.